welcome to Worldwide Railroad. Today I've got a topic that I think is really important to the community for O-gauge modeling, and I think it's important that we get our thoughts out there and share what we're thinking and definitely make our voice heard by the manufacturers. And that topic today is the command control system that we use to control our trains. Now, there are two primary systems that we have today, right? We have MTH's DCS system, and then we have the Lionel Legacy, Bluetooth, TMCC, Line Chief, whatever you know, there's a bunch of different names they have to it, right? But that's their system now as well. So I've got some notes here. I want to make sure I capture everything in this video today. I think this is really important. So we'll jump into this. First of all, this conversation came up in the Matt and Matt Discord, which there will be a link to that Discord server in the description below. I highly recommend you join the server. Awesome community, and we'd love to have you there. Additionally, leave your thoughts below. I'd love to know what you're thinking about this. How do you feel about this topic and, you know, remote versus application for controlling your trains? Share what you think. Share what your thoughts are. So, to jump right into it, do I prefer a remote or an app? I prefer an application. I think the remote is clunky. I don't think it is that easy or that intuitive necessarily to use. It's probably easy enough, right? I've used it before, but I don't think it's any better than an application. The application is easy enough, especially either the MTH or the Line Chief app. I have not had too much difficulty picking them up, right? I learned them in a matter of minutes. I think they were quicker to learn for me, at least, than a remote was. I think as well, going forward into the future, that from a manufacturer's perspective, the remotes are not that ideal for them, right? There's a lot more involvement and a lot more supply chain potential issues that go into the creation of a handheld remote as opposed to the creation of an application. And on top of that, keeping an application updated, adding new features as it comes out, or making tweaks can be done very quickly, whereas the same cannot be done for a handheld remote, right? You've got to go back to the manufacturer and go back through a lot of different steps and processes in order to make those changes. So I don't think that the remotes are going to be the future. I certainly understand why people do like the remotes, but it's not for me, and I don't think that MTH or Lionel is going to necessarily encourage the use of a remote going forward. So do make sure you take good care of your remote, right? As another reason I'm not a huge fan of a remote, if a part inside fries for whatever reason, or someone spills something on it, or it gets dropped accidentally and it breaks, well, you're probably out of a remote, unless you are very good at either self-repairing it, or you can find spare parts somewhere. I mean, if you can, good luck, great, that's awesome. I doubt that's going to be possible. So the next issue I really think is important to the community as well is how we're getting the signal out to the trains, right? I think Bluetooth is the future. Obviously, Lionel has already started that in the last couple of years, thankfully, right? These new engines you get, if you don't have a Legacy or TMC command base and remote, you can control them with the Line Chief app. I'm one of those people, right? I came back to the hobby 2019 roughly is when I came back to the hobby, and at that time I wasn't sure what I wanted to get or what I should be getting in terms of a command control system, and so I didn't pick up a Legacy system then. By the time I realized that I want one or should get one, the prices were already ridiculous, reaching $800+ for a second-hand system. And that's not something I was willing to fork over. So that put a lot of hesitancy into me actually even buying a Lionel engine, right, unless I could control it. Now I have been willing to pick up some of the newer Lionel engines that have come out in the last couple of years because I can control them with the Line Chief app. But if it were not for that, I may have still put off even buying these engines because it'd be, I don't know how many years until I could control them, right? And remotely, that is. And for me, that's no fun. So that's how I feel about it. For MTH, they've had an app right for a long time and all of this, but they don't have Bluetooth still. And I do think that has potential damage for them going forward in terms of if you're someone who's new to the hobby and you want to buy an MTH or an Atlas engine that runs the Proto 3.0 system, you're not going to want to buy if you want to remotely control that train, you're not going to want to buy it if you can't remotely control it. And I've heard rumors that the WTIU, right, the Wi-Fi/track interface unit, is more than a year out still. So what are we going to do? We're just going to sit here and keep waiting and crossing our fingers, hoping that we're going to get this system? I mean, that's not good, right? From a hobbyist perspective, it's also, obviously MTH and Atlas don't want to see that happening either. But this is where the need for a Bluetooth chip going forward on all of these engines is necessary. And updating the MTH DCS app so that these future engines that are coming out with the Bluetooth chip can be controlled. I think that's really the best way forward. Obviously, we will need to have a backwards compatible system still, so we will need always going forward here into the future some sort of TIU and or legacy command-based system, such as the CAB3, that will allow us to control these older engines. So that's going to be an obvious necessity, but hopefully also these manufacturers will begin to push out new boards that have Bluetooth on them, so that, and even if it's like a TMCC board, so basic features, nothing fancy, but just a Bluetooth chip, so that we can control these older TMCC engines with our new apps and don't have to keep using an old, interface unit such as the legacy command base or a TIU, and we don't have to keep using an old remote, right? That way it helps consolidate what we have to use for controlling our trains. I don't think anyone probably enjoys having to have 2 or 3 different remotes to control all the different trains. I personally would not enjoy that. I enjoy being able to just control it all from my phone or from a tablet. So the next thing that I want to talk about a bit briefly here is the cost. These costs are crazy. I don't know about all of you, but just the cost of a WTIU or the Wi-Fi and TIU interface unit, brand new, at MSRP was around what, $350 some or so, and that was when it first came out. You're not going to find it at that, right? So now you have to go and find these systems in the secondhand market, and people are charging double, triple, maybe even more, and these are for used systems. You don't know if they're going to work correctly, and maybe they will, but maybe they'll burn out on you. And when you come into this hobby, you didn't come into doing model railroading. We're not in this, I'm not in this anyway, at least, I'll speak for myself, in this to spend money on the command and control systems. I'm here because I want to play with the trains, right? I want to set up the railroad, and I want to do modeling and hobbying. The command control systems is not what I want to be spending my money on. And if you look at drones or any of these other new remote control vehicles that are coming out, they're all coming out with an app, and the app's easy to use, and the app's free. It's a part of getting that, that plane or that drone. So this has got to change. I don't think the continued pushing out of expensive command control systems is good for the hobby. For both the hobbyist, the manufacturer, it constricts the hobby, and I hope that we can move away from them. So the last point here that I would like to point on, or get on, is this. I understand that the CAB3 has been delayed. I understand that there are supply chain issues. I get that we have other issues that Lionel is coming, that have been encountered. Maybe there are design, production issues, right? However, that said, I think they could have released the CAB3 app sooner. Again, I'm not in there. I don't know. Maybe there's something that they can't for some reason. But the CAB3 app, from what I've read in the magazine, from what they've put on their website, it seems like they could have released that already. And if they had released that already, we'd be able to control our fancy Vision Line engines or other trains and use all the features that they come with. The Lion Chief app, I do appreciate it. It's great. It does work well. It's easy to use. That said, if I want to use the fancy features or do some of the other stuff that these legacy or Vision Line engines can do, I simply can't do it on the Lion Chief app. And I understand Lionel's desire to keep the app's interface itself rather basic and simplistic because it is there for their Lion Chief engines, and they don't have all those features. So putting all those extra buttons is a bit of a waste from a design perspective for that application. That said, they do have the whole voice control aspect to it, and to me, it would seem like a pretty easy addition to include things like blow down or changing the marker lights of the engine via the voice control of the Lion Chief app. That way you're not complicating the interface further, but you still allow folks who are buying your higher end engines to use the full features that come with them while we're sitting here waiting months, years, a year I think at this point, for the new Cab 3 remote and base that's, or not remote, sorry, but the Cab 3 app and base that are coming out in the near future. Hopefully we'll see that at the end of this year, but I'm not crossing my fingers, right? I'm not going to hold my breath. We'll see what happens. So anyway, really quick recap. I prefer the app over the remote. I think apps are going to be the future for controlling the trains. I think Bluetooth is the ideal way to go forward. It certainly helps with dealing in terms of issues regarding like the rails getting dirty and signal having issues in terms of signal strength and all of that. Having Bluetooth, unless you're on an absolutely massive layout, right, where the trains go way far away from where you might be, and you might have an issue with the Bluetooth then. However, that even said, right, you could get repeaters or something like that to help if you've got a layout that big and you're concerned about the signal strength with Bluetooth. I certainly haven't really had any issues with Bluetooth signal strength. Granted, I've got a smaller layout. I don't have a layout as big as some other folks. And the other thing that I'd like to repeat is the cost, right? We're in this hobby for the model trains. We're in it for doing the hobbying. We're not in it to spend hundreds of dollars on command control systems. And at this point in time, given what you get in terms of an application and the ability to control for other things like drones or planes these days, I think it is a reasonable expectation to get a solid functioning app for the trains that we buy these days that can control them straight out of the box without having to buy these extra accessories to then have to plug in and wire up and all of that. So anyway, thank you for watching this video. Thanks for coming to the channel. Be sure to subscribe and like. And like I said at the beginning, we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you perceive this whole situation. What are your preferences? That would be great. So thank you and have a wonderful day.